Can a small dog bring down an elephant? This is what we'll talk about today. This video will be a bit different than the Russian version of it so far, because there are new things happened, and we will discuss that too. This video will consist from two parts. This is part one. I'm making it to catch up to the Russian version of the video, to see what's led to the situation we are in right now. We will talk about Ukraine war, about Ukraine, about Russia, about the United States. Please stay tuned till the end of the video. You'll find out a lot of valuable information. Hello there, I'm Elena. Welcome back to my channel. Enough of propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share my videos. Let's make truth available for everyone. Right off the bat, I'm proposing to play an exciting political game, which I just invented. The idea for this game came to me from Russian cartoon Mowgli, which is a Russian version of Kipling's story. For that, you need very simple tool. This one, rake. This game is not for everyone. This game is only for mature adults in legal age. This is such a disclaimer, by the way. And it's for people who truly believe in Putin's statements, who proposing ceasefire in Ukraine and so on. So this is for special people. It's not just for everyone. If you decided to play this game, you should be very special, you know? All you have to do, go to your shed, grab the rake, put it firmly on the ground, upside the stick up, and step on it. At least, remember, this is very important, 29 times. As hard as you can, so the handle whack you in the head. And don't wear protective helmets or anything like that. It have to be right in the middle of your forehead. I don't think any of my subscribers are applicable for this game, but you can spread the word. But it have to be exactly 29 times. So this is, I believe, Porcupine. And he said,
Через трещину в голове могло бы войти немного ума.
He said, through the crack in the head, some brain may enter your head. Because, obviously, you don't have enough at the moment. Why you need it precisely 29 times? Because this is the amount of ceasefires which happened in 2014-2015 between Russia and Ukraine, which Russia violated, keep killing Ukrainians, as you can find out in my video. It was all filmed. There were American Vice News there, Simon Ostrovsky, they were United Nations people, so these are the facts. Here's my video, which is explain everything more in detail. This poster actually a real thing. People asked me in the past. It was installed somewhere in Montenegro, I believe. So the first part of the video will be about catching up to the Russian version of video, what happened before today, let's say, in Ukraine, in the world, on the front, and so on. And the second part, what is happening right now, which is very important. You can skip to the second part if you watched the Russian version of the video. 3 years of brutal war and Trump's return were needed for Europe to finally realize no one will defend it except itself. While the United States withdraws from commitments, European countries are seriously considering how to ensure their own security. Just about time, don't you think? Trump's statements have caused deep concern, promoting France to have an emergency summit on the war in Ukraine. Trump has suggested that Europe will be able to purchase weapons for Ukraine, which indicates a softening of his rhetoric, but does not guarantee the real support. At the Munich conference, Zelenskyy emphasized the need to create a European army. The choice is obvious. Either Europe acknowledges the seriousness of the situation, or it remains a passive observer, while autocrats attempt to destroy Western civilization. This is Zelensky's speech in Munich. This is what Zelenskyy said. Putin will be happy if it would be just a ceasefire. For him, this step will be just a pause, to take off a block, to take off a restriction, get rid of political isolation. It's because everything starts from the head. And the head is the United States, a strong, mighty country. It is like a capital. This is why it's so important for Putin. If the dialogue with Russia will be just like right now, United States will be very polite. This not make me feel happy. Zelenskyy is right. United States just invited to the table a criminal, a war criminal, wanted by the International Criminal Court, who were kidnapping Ukrainian children, bomb Ukraine into the ground, killing people, torturing people, chopping the heads of POWs, of Ukrainian POWs, bombing hospitals, and committing war crimes. And legitimize him is wrong thing to do. And he is right. A ceasefire will only play into Putin's hands. And the respectful tone in which United States continues to address a war criminal only strengthens his position. Putin's position is strong right now. Russian propagandists, Russian officials are thrilled with what is happening right now. Polish Foreign Minister Sikorsky condemned Trump's call to Putin as a mistake and acknowledged that sooner or later the European Union will have to send troops to defend Ukraine. This footage from Telegram channel Nevzorov. German Foreign Minister Baerbock stated that restrictions on striking targets deep inside Russia should be lifted. The hopes that Kellogg, because he is competent and know about the war in Ukraine and support Ukraine, will help in any way is evaporating like a piece of sugar in a hot coffee. Because his place in Ukraine is just to make America look good. That's it. Meanwhile, Kellogg insists on ceasefire before negotiations, but admits that an immediate end to the war was, as in 1945, will not happen. That's not the only stupid thing he mentioned before. Today I heard that he is repeating Trump's propaganda lies about if Trump wouldn't be in power, there would be no war in Ukraine. That is a lie, and I proved it and disproved it time and time again. Okay, let's do it again. Just today I posted the video Putin exposed Lavrov's lies. Putin disproved not only Lavrov's statements and his own Russian official lies, but also Trump's words. You're welcome to watch this and hear Putin himself disproving this nonsense. But we could go further. If you go to playlists on my channel, on purpose, I created the whole playlist, which called War in Ukraine, the War in Ukraine 2014. Which explained everything. I have 6 videos on Crimea alone. Even the first one will explain you, and Putin will himself include Putin and Girkin Strelkov, Russian FSB officer who attacked Ukraine in 2014. Explain you what happened. The same thing will tell you Donbass war explained. And I made even shorter videos debunking Russian propaganda. The truth about so-called coup in Kiev. There was no coup. You will see clearly that months before Euromaidan in Kiev even started, Russia and Belarus already had military exercises, Zapad 2013, when they practiced attack on Crimea. Let's look who are the so-called separatists leaders were in Donbass. Almost all of them were Russian citizens with Russian passports who came to independent foreign country Ukraine to create unrest there and pretend that there is some sort of a problem. And then, after Russia took Crimea, before that, nobody was bombed, nobody was killed, nothing was happening in Ukraine, zero. And there was no problem, neither with Russian language, with nothing of it. And I just showed you lies Lavrov said in the previous video, and Russia is saying, I proved in several videos everything. His Russian officer Girkin Strelkov admits that he started the war in Ukraine. And shows you how Russian hero Motorola, Russian citizen, is shooting on both sides at the same time. Bucha massacres, everything is here. And Putin's own words. Here you the full playlist on NATO. From Putin's own mouth you will hear what it is, as well as to my video I just told you about today. If you want the shortest possible version of it, here it is, who and when started the war in Ukraine. You're welcome to watch this, or this playlist is most important. Everything you need to know is here. Include Putin himself admits Crimea belongs to Ukraine. There is no question about it. There is no problems with it whatsoever. And about Russian and Ukrainian Nazis, so everything is in there. And on top of everything, this video, can Trump really stop the war in Ukraine? when you can watch Kerch incident, when Russian military forces first time openly engaged Ukrainian army, attacked Ukrainian army. This is Russian vessel is ramming into Ukrainian ship. And Trump was president. It was 2018. What Trump did? Nothing. Did he stop the war in Ukraine? No, he did not. So the facts are Trump knew that it is not Ukraine's fault. He knew that the war is going on for 10 years. Before last 3 years, only full-scale invasion started. Before that, nothing happened. And he knows that. Yet he chose to lie. And Kellogg's just repeating what his master says. Let's see for a moment how the situation is on the front. So from all the front, the only Russian could possibly achieve is around Pokrovsk. Let's see what is happening there in the last few days. From, let's say, 13th of February. So there is a little bit of Russian attacks. And on the Pokrovsk front, where the Russian offensive basically completely stalled, Russian soldiers admit that Ukraine fully dominates the air thanks to drones, leaving Russian forces with no chance of advancing. Whatever they did accomplish here is just microscopical gains. When there is a war of attrition, the more foreign troops killed and equipment destroyed is the better. So that is exactly what Ukraine is doing. Additionally, Ukrainian forces have liberated the village of Pishchane, which is here. And despite Russian attempts, it's still in the hands of Ukraine. It is in the Donetsk region. This was the result of series of successful counterattacks. And Russian troops continue to complain about Ukraine's powerful strikes that prevent them from moving forward. You're welcome to look at the map and see that Russian demand is ridiculous. In 10 years of war, not out of this 3 years of full-scale invasion, Russia captured very little. And they don't capture neither the Zaporizhia city nor the chunk of the Zaporizhia region, which Russia attached to Russia already, by the law. They annexed it into Russia. The territories where they never have been at all. On the territories Russia captured, horrible things are happening. I'm not even talking about Mariupol, which I showed you in the past. I am talking to you about everything, about Crimea, about how many Crimean Tatars, for example, were murdered and tortured. The same thing is happening everywhere on Russian-occupied territories. People get tortured, murdered, and a lot of graves we'll find out when Ukraine will liberate this territory. Exactly it is in Bucha. It is exactly what Russia was doing in 2014, 2015 in Donbass. It is exactly what Russia did in Crimea and in any territory Russia ever captured. Look at Kherson, for example. Everywhere where Russia have been, now, luckily, Ukraine liberated Kherson. So, I know people from Kherson. People were posting information how Russian troops basically can grab anybody, put them in a torture chamber, and do whatever they want. This is what mafia states, this is what terrorists do. I ask you to remember that Russia is the one who attacked Ukraine. Ukraine didn't attack anyone. Eventually, now Ukraine had to invade Russian territory in Kursk region and even captured major city of Sudzha, one of the biggest they captured so far. It's not the huge city, but this is important. Russia made the offensive there and they couldn't take this territory back for over half a year. Putin failed to clean up his own territory from foreign troops. So, meanwhile, inside Russia, corruption and decline are becoming increasingly evident. Soldiers are being silenced and even killed for exposing bribery schemes, while residents of Russian cities are suffering. Russia literally bombing the Kursk region. And against the backdrop, which I just showed you, Russia launched a reckless mechanized attack in the Kursk region recently, a few days ago. But nothing happened. The infamous 155th Marine Brigade, composed entirely of sadists and fascists who literally chopping the heads off of Ukrainian POWs, attempted to break through a minefield in tanks with the red flags Ukrainian warriors from 47th Brigade, Magura, destroyed them. Footage of the destruction was posted online, provoking usual outcry from Russian Z-bloggers that this is not how the war should be fought. The idea that they shouldn't even start this war didn't even cross their mind, but they complaining. And the newest lie of Putin. Just today Putin claimed that Russia started offensive in Kursk region, from Kursk region into Ukraine. So far I don't see any of this. And according to Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian commanders, there was a small group of Russian soldiers who decided to cross into Ukraine and they were killed by Ukrainian forces. So there is no confirmation of some massive Russian invasion, massive Russian offensive into Ukraine from Kursk region. Period. Zero. I haven't seen any. Ukraine continues to strike Russian oil refineries. This time the target was the Ilsky oil refinery in Krasnodar region. Footage of the strike on the facility appeared online and locals reported fire at the site. As I said in the past, to my viewers and to my subscribers on Quora, that this is the effective way to cripple Russian army and stop them from killing Ukrainians. And Ukraine will continue to do so. And they will continue to bomb refineries and oil storages. And maybe some other time I'll explain you in depth about this, but this is what is happening right now. While Russia is keep killing Ukrainians and bombing Ukrainian cities, Russian citizens are suffering. This is a Krasnodar region. This is they basically residents of Krasnodar drowning in feces, exactly as my home city Volgograd used to when I posted it. I think it was 2023 or 2022. The war is consuming all their resources. Nothing they can do. Authorities can do nothing, and infrastructure collapsing inside Russia. They were lucky that they didn't have very cold winter so far. Last winter was way worse. And there was another economic collapses, and the city, the whole houses was left without electricity, without heat, without any bombings from Ukraine whatsoever. Nothing Ukraine did. That was Putin's war, who keep killing Ukrainians, keep killing Russians en masse. This is what Putin and his fascist regime did to my country. These are young Russian people, most of them young, many of them. These are my compatriots, basically. This is what happened to them. Thanks to Putin and his aggressive war in Ukraine. The footage is from several Telegram channels and Michael Naki's channel, which is very, very good channel. Michael Naki really confirming the information and so on, and has information right from the front. And what's that? This is Novosibirsk region. Russian caskets with the corpses of Russian soldiers were dumped in the garbage yard. This is how Russia is looking after Russian soldiers. I bet Americans would be envy. Any American soldier fallen in some war or something on duty. It has an even name of the guy. So as Michael Naki showed, and several, it's a footage of Telegram channels what Russians are posting themselves. They came to the garbage yard and they found a bunch of caskets with corpses of Russian heroes of special military operation. That's make me feel awful. But what make me feel even more awful that some foreigners admires Russian dictator. Elon Musk just said, oh, he praised Russian leadership. This is what Russian leadership lead to. Enjoy viewing it and see how wonderful it would be if it would happen in your country. Meanwhile, a meeting between Russian and American delegations happened in Saudi Arabia. The US was represented by Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russia by Sergey Lavrov. Well, despite that, Rubio clarified that this is not yet formal negotiations, but rather an attempt to determine how sincere Putin is about reaching peace. So apparently Americans still don't know that Russia lies all the time. Putin just showed how sincere he is. And I'll show you in a minute. Anne from Ukraine is saying that doesn't make America look great again. How do you feel about this? New American administration with the greatest war criminals of the 21st century at one table. No Ukraine, no Europe. A tremendous shift in the US foreign policy. So these are the war criminals who destroying European country right now. pounding them into the ground, just because Ukraine is an independent country, didn't roll over for Putin. And Americans are having meeting with them. But this is not the end. As I showed you in my previous video, one of the previous videos, just as soon as Trump said that Russia wants peace, Russia whacked Chernobyl. And all that sarcophagus or construction which European countries paid for to protect everybody from radiation, Russia whacked it. So send a message, you get down on your knees to the weakling Putin, whose economy is collapsing, who can't achieve anything on the front. His attempt to the offensive stalled everywhere, and nothing he can do about it. There is no way, according to central bank chief Nabiulina, that Russian economy will recover. The inflation in Russia is not 8 or 9%, as some says. You keep believing in Russian fairy tales. The inflation in Russia at least 29-30%. And the central bank interest rate is 21%. They wasn't there to make it higher because of Russian companies will collapse. And yet the loser is dictating the world the terms. Why? Why is that? Here is a very interesting video I want to share with you, and I suggest you listen to Timothy Snyder, the famous American historian. But let's talk about Marco Rubio for a sec.
Here is the way Senator Marco Rubio saw Vladimir Putin before becoming Donald Trump's Secretary of State.
A gangster in Russia is threatening NATO, threatening the unity of Europe, and now expanding his reach into the Middle East at our expense.
This is how Timothy Snyder see what is actually happened in Saudi Arabia.
The crucial thing here, as you suggested earlier, is that the Ukrainians are not actually present. It's a little bit like it's 1941 and the United States meets with Nazi Germany to decide the fate of Great Britain without inviting the British. That's where we are right now. We are meeting with the aggressor. We are meeting with the representative of a man who is indicted for war crimes, and quite rightly so. We are legitimating this war of aggression by meeting with the representatives of the aggressor state. And we are marginalizing the people, the nation, the Ukrainian state that were attacked. Negotiation could take place between Ukraine and Russia about peace. It can't take place between the United States and Russia about peace because the United States and Russia are not at war. If the United States wished to bring an end to this war, and if Mr. Trump is right that he has the power to end this war, the way that that would look would be that the United States would make it harder for the aggressor to fight and easier for the state that's defending itself, Ukraine, to do so. But that is not what we are doing. If anything, we are throwing our power on the side of the aggressor, which is not going to bring peace. It's more likely to bring a longer and a bloodier war.
I agree totally with Mr. Snyder. So basically, it's not the aggressor, it's not Putin get down on his knees and crawl to Ukraine begging for negotiations. Because Russia is losing the war. Russia didn't achieve any goals in Ukraine. Russian economy is collapsing. But not the Putin who crawl to Ukraine to beg for peace. No. This is an elephant. The United States get down on the knees and crawl to Putin and beg him for negotiations. This is what's happening. Putin is sitting and receiving the propositions, and he declining them one by one. Lavrov clearly stated Putin's position. We want everything. We will not agree to give up any territories, and we want more. Not only Crimea with Russian control and parts of Donetsk which Russia controls, but as I showed you on the map, Zaporizhia, which Russia never been in, never controlled, and a whole bunch of territories. So Putin is negotiating from position of strength, and Trump just giving him everything. He give up him information about what the negotiations cards they have in the sleeve, up on their sleeve. Gee, how surprising that Trump reveals secrets to Putin. This is not the first time. This is just one of the pieces of Trump talking to the KGB spies, but in my video about foreign agents of Putin, Trump and Putin, it was part 2 of the series, literally, it's proven that Trump invited Russian ambassador and reveal him secrets just to brag about. So why won't you just release the horny American teenager? And there he is, Jack Texteria, if I pronounce his name right. The horny American youngster revealed the secrets just to impress his buddies in a video game. Why wouldn't you release him and make him a president of the United States? Why not? President Trump is overestimating very highly the involvement and help from the United States to Ukraine. So Europe, as soon as they find out about the meeting in the Saudi Arabia, where they wasn't even invited, neither was Ukraine invited, what are they doing? They get a meeting in Paris, and as Mark Rutte commented, ready and willing. So that's his take of the meeting in Paris. Europe, it seems to him ready and willing to step up, to lead and provide security guarantees for Ukraine. Ready and willing to invest a lot more money in the security, and the details need to be decided. In my opinion, they should have done it years ago. Ukraine, by their blood, by their sacrifice, bought them 3 years, despite 10 years of the war, additionally 3 years of the bloody invasion of Ukraine, by suffering losses, by fighting Russia. Europe has 3 years to prepare themselves to step up. But now they decided, oh, apparently we should do something about it. And they should. And I hope they will. The UK has already expressed its willingness to send troops to Ukraine after a peace agreement is reached, as confirmed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. This marks the first time a European leader has openly declared the possibility of security guarantees provided by European military forces. But he has also said that United States is supposed to be step up as well, because without the United States guarantees, nothing will happen, basically, in Europe, because it's a long story. I wouldn't go into the details just now, but I could say that a small force placed on the borders, for example, could deter from Russia to attack just because this is a NATO troops and Russia doesn't want to provoke NATO. Only if the representatives of all the NATO countries will be there. It would be small force. It wouldn't be enough to stop Russians if they would invade, but it will prevent just because of the deterrence kind of thing. This is the message from U.S. military volunteers in Ukraine. They basically sent Trump far away and without bread, and they say Trump's peace terms isn't peace, it's a surrender, a gift to Putin. And keep in mind, these are not mercenaries, they are part of Ukrainian army. They are not United States army troops. There are no United States army troops fighting in Ukraine. Period. United States is not the part of the war. Yeah, they sending some help, some aid, but United States is not fighting in Ukraine. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. Which, being in Ukraine right now and fighting for Ukraine would be way more noble than anything United States did, either in Iraq or Afghanistan, or let alone Vietnam. This is Ukrainian soldier Dmytro Tishetsky wrote a letter to Americans. America, I have a question for you. You choose Donald Trump as your president, and today your president picked up the phone and called the world #1 terrorist. Not to demand justice, not to hold him accountable, but to talk, to negotiate, to treat him like a legitimate leader. So tell me, how do you feel about that? Would you have accepted a president who called bin Laden after 9/11? Would you have justified sitting down with ISIS? Because that's exactly what just happened. I've buried brothers because of Putin. I've seen civilians executed, children crushed under the rubble, entire families wiped off the earth. And yet Trump, your leader, just gave the monster a seat at the table. For 3 years, Ukraine has been fighting for survival, standing on the front of the line of freedom. The American people have stood with us, and I will always be grateful for that. But now your president stands with our enemy. So I'll ask again, America, how do you feel about that? I can add to this that despite Putin's attempts to discredit Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, this is a lie. Zelenskyy is legitimate leader, elected by Ukrainian people. And Putin is illegitimate leader. Prove me that Putin was legally elected. Russia never had Putin legally elected. He was appointed by Yeltsin, and after that we never had real elections at all. If necessary, I'll make another video on that, but I don't want to waste my time right now. So out of two leaders, Putin is the one who isn't legitimate leader, and yet Trump's representatives sit at the table with him. I finished the video in the Russian version of it with a sentence that the little dog has already sunk its teeth into the elephant. The question is, will Europe join the fight or will it stand by and watch? But now situation developed further. And let's talk about this. Since it looks like the Europe is trying and willing to step up. Let's see what the United States is doing just after the meeting with Putin. In other news from current time, American secret services find out that Putin isn't even interested in a real peace agreement. Oh wow! Finally, American intelligence catch up to me. I was telling about this since the beginning of full-scale invasion, since the beginning of the war in 2014. Good morning, Americans! Let's see what Donald Trump just said about Ukraine.
I think I have the power to end this war, and I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
What do you expect to hear from a rapist? I personally has experience listening to a lecture of Galina Ivanova, a Russian popularizer of psychology, psychologist who go in and giving lectures. And she was once invited to assess the rapist, convicted criminal, well, was going to be convicted criminal who was arrested and so on, assess his psychological stage and so on. So basically, the rapist told her, well, it's all was her fault. And Galina asked him, and what did she do? Did she say, come here? Did she invite you in any way? And he said, no. So how it is her fault? She walked in such a manner. So basically, she asked for it. So right now, Trump, in front of everybody, lied that Ukraine started this war. I just showed you a lot of proofs that it's absolutely 100% wrong. This is a lie. It is more than that. It's not just a lie. This is a Russian talking point, which Russia pushed this propaganda all along from the very beginning, before the war in Ukraine even started. And it started in 2014, as I said, and for 4 years, Trump, who apparently is thinking now, after a million people dead, that he can stop the war. So apparently he didn't care to stop it during his 4 years of presidency. And neither did anybody before him, not Obama. At least Biden helped Ukraine and give Ukraine weapons, while Trump stopped it for 6 months. And yet Ukraine didn't stop fighting back, because Ukraine is defending not only their sovereignty or freedom, their very life. And what we see here, he recently just posted it. Think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Vladimir Zelenskyy, talked to the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, they never had to start, but a war that he, without the US and Trump, will never be able to settle. United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed while the United States get nothing back. And so on. Still kicking Biden, who isn't president anymore, who lost the election, and so on. Zelenskyy admits half of the money we sent him is missing. That's a lie. That's absolute lie. United States, and I proved it in my video about Putin, foreign agents of Putin, and several other videos, like there is a whole playlist about the United States and fighting propaganda about United States aid. There was complete investigation from the United States, and nothing they found, because majority of the money, it isn't the money United States giving to Ukraine. It's money invested in the United States to produce new weapons, while they're giving old weapons to Ukraine. If they wouldn't give these weapons to Ukraine, they will have to spend money of American taxpayers to decommission them, because nothing lasts forever. Good luck eating stale bread which molded, because weapons have to be replaced. And this is cost money. Basically, this is Russian talking point. A dictator without elections. This is exactly who Putin is, not Zelensky. Trump is repeating Putin's talking points about elections in Ukraine. As I said, according to Ukrainian law, during the war, elections are postponed. This is a law. It's not the idea of Zelensky. It's not the idea of somebody else. This is a lie. And even Ukrainian politicians who are not supporters of Zelensky admitted to that. Another lie, Trump said that rating of approval of Zelensky 4%. That's a lie. Zelensky was elected with 73% in the past. The lowest rating he ever had was in December, I think, 2024, which was 52%. Right now, it's 57%. Many American politicians would dream to have a rating like this. This is just disgusting how President of the United States repeating Russian propaganda word for word, made up lie, based on nothing. So that was information from Kiev Institute of Sociology, who said that 57% is support of Zelensky. So Zelensky said, if somebody wants to exchange me on some puppet just now, not gonna happen. And that's basically, if we're talking about the disinformation that my rating is 4%, we understand that it is coming from Russia. And I agree with him. And Zelensky proved it by the research. This is Ukrainian politician Alexei Goncharenko, which is also in his interview to Current Times in Russian, stated that he isn't supportive of Zelensky, and he agreed that elections supposed to come someday after the war is over. So is Zelensky agreed on that. So is everybody agreed on that. But immediate election isn't possible, isn't visible, and not gonna happen. And he completely agrees with that and stand by Ukraine. And by the way, to the American Christians, guess what this book called, standing on the shelf of Ukrainian politician? It's called Bible. Trump's representative Kellogg arrived in Kiev, and Zelensky said, I can take him anywhere. I can take him to the front. No problem. Let's go and see how things really are. Let's see how brave Mr. Kellogg is. Current Time asked Zelensky what he can do to make Kellogg see the Ukrainian point. Zelensky said, fine, I'll take him on the front. I'll come with him, and he could talk to people who are fighting on the front. So the stupid propositions about elections, it's just plain stupid. And what, are they gonna drop everything and go home to vote or something like that? He can ask people in Ukraine, people who live there, people who fight in the war. Let them tell Kellogg what is happening in Ukraine. So this is what Zelensky said. Trump words about that Ukraine, they spend on Ukraine huge amount of money, enormous amount of money, which never happened. Zelensky called it not serious conversation. According to Zelensky, in 3 years of the war, Ukraine spent on the war $320 billion. 120 billions of dollars out of those 320 was spent by Ukraine itself. Another 200 was spent by European Union and the United States in almost equal amounts. According to State Department, United States provided about $94 billion so far. And Trump is claiming $500 billion United States alone. Boy, oh boy. Bring an adult in the room who can verify the blabbing nonsense Trump is spreading. Zelensky said that he is open to the negotiations about rare earth metals and so on, but Ukraine need stable peace, and not for 5 minutes, basically, but guarantees of security and safety. And nobody so far provided any of this. Nobody even did anything on the matter, I can add for myself. So until that happens, there is no point for Ukraine to discuss any of this. United States basically not helping Ukraine, despite enough to be able to claim $500 billion. This is not the case. On the bright side, so far Trump didn't withdraw the help to Ukraine, military help to Ukraine, and I admit that this is true. And so far I'm not all that concerned that he will. because the majority of the American people are supporting Ukraine. They know the better. They know that Ukraine is fighting for their freedom as well. But I wouldn't be too relaxed either, because the attempts, what is just now happened in Saudi Arabia, the propaganda, Russian propaganda, which Ukrainian president just disproved, in which Trump, Musk, and a whole bunch of American politicians are spewing to the public in the United States, is a concern. It leads to Trump's trying to step back and give up Ukraine. And he is looking for excuses, in my opinion. This is an opinion. Why he shouldn't support Ukraine. To be able to explain the majority of American people who wants to support Ukraine, who knows better, why he can do that. This is the attempt to throw Ukraine under the bus, in my opinion. But so far, the military assistance continues from the United States. And I hope that even for our own reasons, Trump will do the right thing. But my hope is very, very optimistic, I would say. I am from Canada. I have no issues with either parties and no reason to support all of them. All I'm trying to do to support Americans as a nation, as a country. And I think it's time to forget about your tribalism and whose party you belong to and start saving your country right now, if you don't want to end up in Russia. Because Trump and Putin isn't Russian and Trump isn't American. They're not looking after your interests. They don't care. Putin already murdered over 860,000 Russian people. He doesn't care. Because all his care, not to go to jail and stay in power forever. His own interests, the only thing he cares about. And exactly the same as Trump. Only he didn't kill that many people yet. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your country. He doesn't care about anything. As to the dog is winning at the point at this moment in time. Elephant, American elephant, not NATO elephant, completely rolled over and licked the dog's feet at this point in time, because American president is spreading Russian propaganda word for word. This is a fact. I just showed you his own Truth Social, which is ironic, because in Soviet Union the most lying newspaper was called Pravda, the truth. Nothing was close to the truth as this newspaper, and exactly the same as Trump. And his Truth Social is a lie. Whatever he's spewing there, he's bypassing your democratic institutions and your press, free press, because he can't suppress it. He isn't dictator yet like Putin. Putin just murdered them, throw them into jail, and make them run away from the country. Trump can't do that. That's why he's discrediting for years of American press who ask inconvenient questions, who demanding the truth and criticizing his actions is a threat. For every dictator, free press is a threat, and it has to be destroyed. This is exactly what he did in his Truth Social and before Twitter account. This was his way to bypass any of this. So nobody ask inconvenient questions and gobble his lies exactly like Russians are gobble Putin's lies, because nobody can contradict it. And whoever does in Russia are going to jail for decades, like a murderers who committed multiple murders. Well, murderers actually get released immediately and go to the front in Ukraine. And then they get released completely after that if they survive. So if you don't want this to be your future, think about it now. This is what I'm suggesting. Thank you for watching. I hope for the best for everyone. For Ukraine, for Russian people, not for Putin. And for American people. So far, I see Ukraine is fighting, defending itself, and United States is sliding towards dictatorship, towards Putin, towards Russia. And on my channel, I showed you what Russia looks like. Would you like to live in Russia? I don't like to live in Russia. But if you like, you're welcome to move there. There is no point to destroy United States. You can just go there and live there. And I'll pay for your one ticket to Russia if you give up your citizenship and move. Good luck to you. I'll help. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Learn the truth and stay informed. See you later.